Hello, welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton. The last week of October is difficult because on the one hand, you have studios sending out, starting to get out some of their Oscar bait stuff. And on the other hand, you have studios getting out their Halloween stuff. And, ideally, you'd have a coherently themed show that where you have a show that does Oscar bait, and then you have a coherently themed show where you have a show that does spooky season. But I gotta take the hits as they come. I can't just be like, well, this week I'm going to do Oscar bait and then leave a movie, half the stuff sitting for 2 weeks, and then say this week I'm doing spooky, and have that the other half sit for 2 weeks, different 2 weeks. So I'm mashing it all into one. So we're getting an amalgama of Oscar bait and spooky, and there's no overlap. Okay. So the first Oscar bait movie was the big theatrical release this week, although it lost handedly to the Chainsaw Man release, which I'm not a Chainsaw Man person, so I didn't see it. Apologies if you were hoping I would do Chainsaw Man, but here we are doing Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. So here's the thing with Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. It has a 0.0% chance of getting nominated for Best Picture. Why? Because as a coherent movie, it's just not entirely there. It's super light. It's really, really light. This movie follows, it does the thing that I like about biopics, which it focuses most of the time on one small time frame of the artist. And in this case, it's Bruce Springsteen coming off of a super successful tour for his album The River in 1980, and the studio the album the studio, no, it's not the studio, the record label, the label wants him to, if we do one more mega banger hits album, you're going to be the biggest thing on the planet. And Bruce falls into a malaise that leads him down a road to creating an album, which ends up being an album called Nebraska, which I honestly had never heard anything. I'm not a big Bruce guy. All right. So I'm a huge classic rock guy. Bruce was never the one that it was never the artist for me. And that's, I appreciate him, and I appreciate people who like him, but I'm putting in like 5 dozen other artists before I'm like, okay, now let's listen to just a Bruce album. Anyway, so Nebraska, he ends up, because of his malaise, and we find out later at the very, very end of the movie that it's actually a depression. He ends up creating an album by the name of Nebraska, and label doesn't like it, and his manager doesn't like it, and it's and that's like 70% of the movie. Should have been 95% of the movie, because the other 30% is flashback to Bruce's childhood in New Jersey with an alcoholic father who abuses him and his mother, and the difficulties of that, and how obviously that feeds into his depression. So the interesting there are interesting aspects of this movie, and I it's not a total loss. Jeremy Allen White is fucking amazing as Bruce Springsteen. All right, let's just and as somebody who obviously again has stated not the biggest Springsteen fan, but I know enough about Bruce Springsteen to, he's a figure in popular culture enough for me to, have seen enough of Bruce Springsteen to say, oh, that's a really fucking good Bruce Springsteen. But ultimately, what this isn't material that's spread thin. Okay, there is a lot to unpack, but it feels very much like there were, uh, you feel the manufactured conceit of parts of the movie. For example, there is a love interest who turns out is an amount, a combination of multiple characters, multiple people, real life people who were involved with Bruce Springsteen at various times in his life. And so we have a character, Faye, who isn't a real person. No, and it feels that way. It just feels like the character is not it. It feels like a crafted character, and it turns out, okay, that character actually was crafted. Similarly, from my understanding about his childhood, there is a lot of sort of dramatization, of some of the difficulties, and it, there's too much of that anyway. And it really does kind of take away from parts of the movie. The parts of the movie that really do work for me, that I really enjoyed, were the crafting of the album. And I have heard some criticism saying, like, oh, well, I don't really care about how they got the sound of Nebraska to sound like this, but I'm kind of interested in that. And I do, even though the characters that are doing it, while they're doing that, you're taking away from Bruce time. But at the same time, that aspect of it was pretty interesting to me. Also, obviously, seeing Bruce, dealing with his depression, and it's, anybody who's a human being, probably can relate to having moments of despair and moments of feeling, lost, or not being heard completely, or struggling to really make themselves and what they're thinking and feeling clear. That's a common, I would imagine, a common, my assumption is that people feel that, and so it's kind of it's interesting to see that portrayed on the screen. But at the same time, it's the stakes do feel a little like it's tough, because what the difficult thing with a biopic is, you kind of know where things are going to land. And the reality for Bruce is that, what he has had to overcome, it you never, that there's not going to be a drug problem, because he never had a drug problem. And there's not going to be a point where, oh no, this album didn't get, that he wanted didn't get made, because the album got made. Like, the weight of the dealing with his depression is also subdued by the fact that they never call it depression until a title card at the end, that that says, from the time that he first spoke to a therapist, prior to the release of Nebraska, Bruce has had to seek professional, has spoken with professionals about, to keep depression at bay. And that was the first time that they even mentioned this might be depression. And it just kind of, it was like, oh, okay, well, I just thought he was, having a momentarily, a difficult moment in his life. And, ultimately this movie, the weight of this movie is going to probably weigh heavily on how much you appreciate it, weigh heavily on your appreciation of Bruce in general. And my guess is that somebody who might not, like me, who might be ambivalent towards Bruce, is probably going to be, wishy-washy on the movie. And, if you downright don't like Bruce, there's no way you're going to be like, there's nothing that goes on in this that's original. This is my way of saying, if Jeremy Allen White gets an Oscar nomination, that's perfectly fine. But this movie, like, it's just another fucking biopic, and we can stop now. Like, I'm good. And I know we're going to get the Beatles biopics coming out in another year-ish or so. And the Beatles are my absolute favorite, and I'm good. Like, I don't need that. I'll watch it, and not just because of this show that I do. I'll watch it because I do love the Beatles, but also I don't need it. And so here at Real to Real Talk, we do tacos instead of stars. And if we feel like something deserves a little bit of extra, instead of doing half a taco like you would do with half a star, we add guac. Why? Because nobody eats half a fucking taco. So Deliver Me From Nowhere, I'm landing on 2 tacos plus guac. This is my standard, hey, the movie's perfectly fine, I have no interest in ever seeing it again. So 2 tacos plus guac, it's a good movie, but that's it. And I never want to see it again. 3 tacos it's a good movie, and I hope I get to see it again. And this falls on 2 tacos plus guac. This is like fucking textbook 2 tacos plus guac. Next up is House of Dynamite. And this is Catherine Bigelow of Hurt Locker, Point Break, and Zero Dark 30 fame. Former wife of James Cameron, who famously beat James Cameron for a Best Picture Oscar, and it's just hilarious. And she teams up with Netflix to present something that we don't get a lot of anymore, which is a nuclear thriller, a thriller based entirely on the U.S. is under a threat of a nuclear attack. And this instance, we have a missile is detected outside of Alaska. It's already in the air, so the satellites missed the actual launch, so they don't know exactly who launched it. All they know is that it's going to be hitting somewhere in Middle America in about 19 minutes, and they have a very small window where they can knock it down, and if they are not able to knock it down, fuck. And Rebecca Ferguson. It's just a crazy all-star cast. The two main actors that everybody knows and loves are Rebecca Ferguson plays a high level analyst in the Situation Room in the White House, and Idris Elba plays the president. Now, the way this movie is presented is really interesting, because what you're given is basically 20 minutes of time presented from three different primary vantage points. We start with the 20 minutes of time presented primarily from Rebecca Ferguson's vantage point. And then we get a middle layer from the vantage point of basically the national security advisor, the undersecretary of a national security advisor, and because the primary national security advisor is having a colonoscopy, and I was gonna say Minister of Defense, but the head of the Defense Department, and then the last 20 minutes is the vantage point of the president, Idris Elba. And so, because of the way the movie is presented, it's the same 20 minutes, from three different vantage points. It really opens itself up to, okay, which one of these three works best? Because while you're getting the same 20 minutes, and parts of it are clearly, obviously repetitive. The focus is very different, and the way that everything is presented is very different. And the first 20 minutes is a banger. Is absolutely, the Rebecca Ferguson segment is just absolutely banger. And then the middle 20 minutes is okay, and then the final 20 minutes just don't work. And so then you have to say, all right, why is that? And part of it might be you're just wrapped with the newness of what's going on, and the intrigue of what's going on. And then the second 20 minutes, it wears off a little bit, and the final 20 minutes, it's not new, and it's just kind of like, okay, I kind of want to know where this goes. And that's a possibility. I think, though, that the last 20 minutes just are poorly written. Like, it's just, for whatever, I love Idris Elba, but for whatever reason, he just doesn't work as the US president, I guess. Or the way he's playing a US president doesn't work, I guess. And I don't know. It's like, so, obviously the focus of the final 20 minutes is one of the things that comes up frequently in the first two acts is, sir, we need to know what our response is going to be. And so the final 20 minutes is literally just focusing entirely on what the response is going to, what are the possible responses, and and him being coached about the various options that are present in the nuclear football that is carried by, sort of like the dude that carries the nuclear football. And it just doesn't, that dude is not up to it. And it just everything just feels like we're stuck in the mud here. And then I will say this, I'm not going to spoil the ending, other than to say that I feel like the ending is rather controversial in the way it's presented. And as a movie that is presented on Netflix, where you're at home and watching it with one to maybe three other people at most, the ending just doesn't work at all, because one of the things about the ending is it really is a fascinating presentation that should open up conversations, but those are conversations you want to have immediately, and not conversations that you want to like sit on and hope that people from your work saw the movie, and then that you can have those conversations later. Like, that's just not, like, there's an immediacy to this movie, and an immediacy to the conversations that it probably wants to elicit, and there's no immediate way to get the conversations out. Ultimately, I don't know, man. I don't know. I do love that first act, but some people are gonna think differently. I land on two tacos on this one. It just falls short, and it falls short because it stops short, and I hope you'll watch it, because I do encourage everybody to watch it, because it's possible that you just like the mental exercise that it presents us. I'm not really there for the mental exercise. The last Oscar bait movie is a possible entry into best documentary. It's John Candy, I Like Me. It's a documentary about his life. I'm not going to go super duper deep into this, other than to say I fucking love John Candy, and so many people love John Candy, and there was a lot to love about John Candy, and you just wish people like John Candy loved themselves. And this is, exactly what this documentary is going to present, and it presents it, and it makes you happy and sad, and it's super successful in that regard. I highly recommend anybody who loves John Candy to check this out. Ultimately, it's a three taco movie. Like, it doesn't break any, like, it's not a groundbreaking documentary. I've seen groundbreaking documentaries before. This isn't that, but this is 100% something that I would happily share with other people. Next, we've got Shelby Oaks, which is a theatrical release, and it's a horror movie. That's right. We have exited Oscar bait territory. We're now in spooky season. Shelby Oaks is it's the first act is a found footage movie. So there's a woman who has a YouTube channel in the early days of YouTube called Paranormal Paranoids. Exactly what you think. It's people going into spooky areas and sensing the paranormal. The 4 people on the show, 3 of them turn up dead when they go into this area called this abandoned town called Shelby Oaks. And one of them is never heard from or found again. But they do find footage of their sort of final show about Shelby Oaks. And there was always 2 cameras, so you're only getting half of the view. And the question is, where's the other camera in order to give the full picture? And then the final 2 acts of the movie is her sister, 12 years after she vanishes, going and looking for her. And it turns into a demon horror film. I fucking love demon horror films. And I don't know that I do love found footage movies. I don't know if I like the mashup here. I don't know that it was a jarring change to go from a found footage movie, with interviews and blah, 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 to just a narrative film. It is a jarring juxtaposition and change, and I just wasn't ready for it. It took me a little while to be like, oh, okay, we're doing a narrative movie, but it's really only going to be about an hour long because we already spent, 40 minutes with the found footage. Okay, let's do this. And then it's just a straight up demon thriller, and I like demon thrillers. So but ultimately, though, as a demon thriller, it's really pretty standard, and as a found footage movie, it's really pretty standard. There are films that have done some of what this movie does, have done it better. Like some of what this movie, it's got a little bit of Barbarian in it, and Barbarian did it better. It's it definitely has a little bit of like the Blair Witch Project. Obviously, it's obvious that it has a little bit of the Blair Witch Project in it. Blair Witch Project did better. It's just this movie has a lot of, well, these other kind of movies did it better, but it does enough to be captivating, and to be good on its own, but it doesn't do enough to excel on its own. Oh, Rosemary's Baby. Oh my God. There's so much of Rosemary's Baby. Like this movie it takes so many pieces of other movies and pieces them together. I don't know how to rate this movie. I like, ever since it ended, I was like, would I ever, my internal debate is, would I ever actually want to sit down and watch this movie again? And I don't know where I land. I'm going to go ahead and do 3 crappy just like 3 Taco Bell tacos, and you should just get the chicken, but you're like, or you should get the steak, but you're like, I haven't done the beef in a long time, and you get the beef, and you ask for soft, and they give you crunchy. And it's like, so now you're eating 3 beef tacos, and like, you weren't really super excited about the beef, but you figure, and you're really not excited about the crunchy, but you did it at a drive-through, and you didn't open your bag until you got to work, and there's no fucking way you're going back to Taco Bell to do it. So there are 3 not great tacos, but I would watch this again because it struck a good tone, and it did some things really well. Even though absolutely nothing it did was new. Speaking of movies with nothing it did was new, we have Night of the Reaper, which is the most recent release on Shudder. This movie, the first two acts are literally like just every slasher movie you've ever seen in your entire life. You know, Scream or Halloween, or just the reason. It's like the first two acts are literally the reason why I don't like slasher movies, because it enough. They're exactly the same. There's nothing new, nothing different. Here we are presented with a grisly murder of a a young woman who is babysitting by a person wearing a skull face mask with a hood. Oh, Scream. Yes. It's like, are we fucking serious? Is this what we're doing? But it takes place in the 80s, which, you know, big heart to that. And uh you know, it's clearly it knows that it's not doing anything new. It literally is just like, hey, we're not going to do anything new. And then it gets to the third act and says, boop, we're flipping, and we're gonna surprise you. Surprise! This is not your every slasher movie I've ever seen. This is no longer going to be a horror movie. This is going to be a straight up thriller with horror elements, and enjoy the way this unravels. And I did. I would say that of the 5 movies I watched, if I had to watch one of them again, this is absolutely the one I would watch again. You know, this is the one I would pick first. Uh and because I really like the third act is fantastic. And it's not like fantastic in the sense that everything works in it, but fantastic in the sense that it really is just like everything else for 2 solid acts, and then the third act is just different. It's so different from everything you've seen before that it's like, okay, I'm in. That's cool. Even though like the third act is absolutely like stolen from other stuff, non-slasher horror movies, but it doesn't matter because it's like it steals from slasher horror movies for 2 acts, and then steals from this other stuff in the third act, and that worked for me and I liked it. But it's not so much that I would give it more than 3 tacos, but these are 3 excellent tacos. Yeah, so like a lot of mediocrity this week. I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully next week we've got some better stuff. I don't control the quality of the stuff I see. I can only tell you what I think of it. And I didn't hate any of these movies, but also didn't love any of them. That's all right. You know, on the bell curve of life, you need way more up here than you do over here. So it works out fine. You know, like we were here. We're, you know, around the most common, and then tailing on the back's way. But hey, this is Really Real Talk. I'm your host, Paul Britton. We will be back here next week reviewing films. I hope you will join us then. Thanks. Be sure to go out and see some movies.